Hi, and welcome to Talk Straight Bible. I'm your host, Rafina Antonetti, and today we are continuing with When the Odds Are Against You. But today's subtitle is When God Gives Us the Victory, Beware. And we're on part 6. And so let's get started because we are excited about the Word of God today. So, excuse me. So we're going to be looking at chapter 8. We're going to be looking at chapter 8. And this chapter is also about battles. The battle in the previous chapter goes against an enemy from outside who has gained a foothold in the promised land. The main force has been defeated. The victory has been achieved, but cannot be celebrated. Why? Because there can be other types of battles that we come in contact with, that we are confronted with, and those battles can be from within, the brother enemy. So here, one of the battles, and we're going to be looking at three different things that can happen in our lives when God gives us the victory. And in Judges 8, 1-3, one of the battles that we can be confronted with is jealousy. And here it says, and the men of Ephraim said to him, what is this thing you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight with the Midianites? And they rebuked him sharply. And he said to them, what have I done now in comparison to you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abizar? God has delivered into your hands the prince of Midian, Orim and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison to you? Then their spirit of anger towards him was appeased when he had said this. So the mind of the Ephraimites is revealed precisely by the victory of Gideon. Through the reaction of them, Gideon's mind also becomes public. I was looking at the commentaries and it says, there is an interaction. When we have gained a victory for and by the Lord, others are put to the test, but so are we ourselves. Did that victory make us important? Gideon does what is written in Philippians 2:3. With humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. This is the means to prevent discord and to maintain unity among the people. He appeases their anger by praising them. He does not go hard against it, but with gentleness. For we know in Proverbs 15:1 it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath. That can be very difficult at times, right? Especially when you're a hot-headed person or you're very short-tempered. But Gideon did just that. He turned away their angry wrath. And although the Ephraimites were not involved in the real battle, Gideon gives them more honor than himself. So we see that Ephraim is a jealous tribe. In Isaiah 11, jealousy is given as a special feature of this tribe. Listen to what this says. And the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not trouble Ephraim. So Ephraim has for a long time, dealt with that. That's in their character. Their own eye is aroused because they were not known in that battle. Their self-esteem is affected. In Joshua 17, we already see what is wrong with the Ephraimites. They are not satisfied with their allotted land. Look what this says. The children of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, Why have you given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, since I am a great people, because the Lord has blessed me until now? So that tells it kind of all, right? After all, they are a large tribe and are therefore entitled to a larger piece, they think. They feel themselves the main tribe. There are people like that. They feel that they are entitled. So why did they feel that way? If anything, you would think that they would be rejoicing that they can get their land and their food and their provision back. But they felt they should have been part of the glory. Why weren't we included in this battle? We need to rejoice with our brothers and sisters when they overcome battles. Be joyful that you can be a part of the victory even when you had nothing to do with it. So instead of praising God, we want to know, why didn't you call me? Ephraim felt that they were that entitled tribe. The spirit of jealousy that categorizes Ephraim is certainly not found in Paul when he rejoices in it when Christ is preached, even at his expense. And look what Philippians 1:15-18 says. Indeed, some are proclaiming Christ out of envy and strife, but some with good intentions. On the one hand, those who are preaching out of the contentious spirit and not purely are thinking to add grief to my bonds. My bonds. But on the other hand, those who are preaching out of love know that I am set for the defense of the gospel. What then shall I say? Nevertheless, in every way, whether in context or in truth, in pretext or in truth, Christ is being proclaimed, and I rejoice in this, yes, and will also continue to rejoice. So whether it is with bad motives, Christ is being preached. I think that Minister Jose said it the other day in 1 Timothy 2:1. I exhort, therefore, first of all, that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made on behalf of all men, for kings and all who are in authority, in order that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and respectability. And we also see in Romans 12:17-18, do not render to anyone evil for evil, but be prepared to do what is right in the sight of all men, if possible, as much as is your part. Be at peace with all men. So we see here that though Ephraim came against Gideon, by him giving them praise and acknowledging things that they have done in the past, quiet that scene. And so though we are confronted with that jealous spirit, or that the feelings of jealousy from other people, we can calm that anger by giving a gentle answer. Another type of battle can be found in refusal to cooperate. That ever happened to you? You are doing God's will, wanting to fulfill the work, and people just won't cooperate. Well, when you're in a leadership role, you can run into that situation many, many times over. They are just negative talking, negative acting, standing in the way. They don't want to do the work, but they don't want you to complete the work. But that can work the opposite way too. We can be the uncooperative person. We can be the person that needs to help and don't help. So don't be that person. The dispute with Ephraim was about sharing in the battle. So after Gideon finished this dispute with Ephraim, he faces a new one. As they continue in their pursuit of the enemy, the dispute that is now arising concerns those who did not participate in the fight, but also don't want to help in any way. Gideon and his men are tired and hungry, but they have to keep going. And they ask for bread and water, and we find that in Judges 8:4-6. So Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed over the river, and he and the 300 men who were with him, exhausted, yet still pursuing the enemy. He said to the men of Succoth, "Please give loaves of bread to the people who are following me, since they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian." But the leaders of Succoth said, "Are Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hands, that we should give bread to your army?" Can you imagine that? Here these leaders are saying, why should we? He did not ask them to come fight with them. Just give us some bread so we can go on. No, they wanted to see the results first. Maybe they didn't believe that 300 men can take on 15,000 or however many men there were. But so what? Just because we can't see the results is not a reason to hold back from your brothers. Just feed them. At least you have blessed God's people, and you will be blessed. Don't wait to see the results. Believe God for the results. That's how the world thinks. Oh yeah, we can't see this God you're talking about. All we see is that the odds are against you. All we see is that there is no possible way that you can defeat them. So why did Gideon even want to go after the remaining Midianites and their kings? I mean, after all, we know that he defeated those that were in the camp. And not only that, they started killing themselves, each other. So the main goal was that he wanted to achieve by chasing the remainder of the Midianites is to capture and eliminate both kings. Because without the authority and strategy of these kings, the army of Midian would have no purpose or leadership. There are some that can't function unless someone is leading them. They can't think for themselves. These kings did not get involved in the battle themselves, but were in the background. From this position, they passed on their orders to the fighters. These kings represent evil powers in the heavenly places, which also operate in the background and pass on their orders to the visible world and exert their influence on others. The meaning of these two kings clearly express their characters. Zebah means a religious sacrifice or a victim to sacrifice. Wow. Zalmunna means a forbidden shadow or a spiritual shadow of death. That says something about the diversity of evil within the sphere of authority of Satan, curse his name, who is called the prince of power of the air. In Ephesians 2:2, it says, "In which you walked in times past according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now working within the children of disobedience." Zebah does not represent a sacrifice to God, but the massacre that Satan, curse his name, without mercy wants to inflict upon God's people. And we see that today all around us. He is at work wanting to kill God's people. Zalmunna characterizes the atmosphere in which it takes place. So, according to the commentary that I read, if we want to be free or unbound, we must not allow these enemies to influence our lives by strife and dissension towards others. Strife, this word strife, That's what Midian means. It's an enemy that is also taking that today is making countless victims among God's people. The ground and atmosphere in which strife takes place is the death shadow. Strife brings no life, but sows death and destruction. It is not for nothing that these two kings are located in the city of Kakar, which means as much as city of destruction. Isn't that appropriate? Because they're all about destruction. That's what our enemy is all about, destruction, strife, dissension. And not only with the enemy, but also amongst ourselves if we are not careful. I've been hearing so many things, and I don't like, here at Talk Straight Bible, we don't really want to, talk about politics and so forth. But I'm seeing so many things concerning this present election. People are talking about not talking to their family members because they voted differently than them. People are talking about not talking to their friends, separating themselves. That is the core of what this is. The enemy is always working to destroy and separate, to kill our relationships. And it should not be with the people of God. If the world does that, well, the world does that. That's their business. God will deal with them. But among us, he will deal with us too. We need to keep the peace. Forget about who won, who lost, who voted, who didn't vote. Forget about it. Have peace among each other. Love one another. Wow. There is another aspect to this victory that is important to point out. The victory over Midian is a foreshadowing of the final victory Israel will achieve over its enemies in the future. So in the meantime, he has to deal with not only the leaders of Succoth, but also with the men of Peniel. They said the wrong thing. Gideon said, "For that, when the Lord has handed over Zebah and Zalmunna to me, I will trash your bodies with the thorns and briars of the wilderness." He went from there to Peniel and spoke similarly to them, and the men of Peniel answered him just as the men of Succoth had answered. So Gideon said also to the men of Peniel, "When I come again in peace, I will tear down this tower." Listen, God gives us the victory. You better believe that the satanic forces are going to come against us when he does give us victory. But know this very clearly. When the odds are against you, when the odds are against me, God is still for us. And he sits on the throne and he is watching. So don't allow your hearts to be deceived. Don't allow your hearts to be hardened because of minor things. Because this is not our home. But our brothers and sisters are our brothers and sisters. And we need to keep the peace. So when we come together again and continue with this study, we will look at the third and final battle. So until we meet again, God bless you. Shalom.